Miami, Florida, October 6, Brian Burns. Photo by Mark Brown, Getty Images. The 2019 NFL Draft edge rusher class has long been regarded as very solid, but with the NFL Combine approaching, a new wave of hype could push this class closer to the realm of the elite. With as many as 6 edge prospects slated to go in round 1, the Washington Redskins need to be well studied come April. With Preston Smith set to test the free agent market, the Redskins could very well have a void to fill opposite Ryan Kerrigan when the draft arrives. There's a number of areas they could go in round 1, as we've discussed in more detail in other draft profiles, but the edge class is so enticing and stocked to the brim with top-end talent, it's hard not to capitalize on that. And with 4 compensatory picks, the Redskins can save other needs for later. We've taken a fairly deep dive into the edge class already, completing scouting reports on Clelin Ferrell and Jachai Polite, 2 rushers who are likely to be available at the Redskins' No. 15 pick. Today, we'll present to you perhaps the most intriguing option out of the edge group. He's been mocked anywhere from the top 5 to the tail end of round 1 so far this offseason, but he has undeniable talent that may be overlooked. Want your voice heard? Join the Rigos Rag team. Write for us. Today, we'll look at Florida State edge rusher Brian Burns. Should the Redskins draft him in round 1? See for yourself. Page 2 TALLAHASSEFL, October 15, punter Dom Maggio. Photo by Michael Chong, Getty Images. Researching Brian Burns, the very first thing that stands out is his size. He's lauded as one of the best edge rushers in the 2019 NFL Draft class, and yet, he's just 231 pounds at a height of around 6'5". His slight frame is very visible on tape, but in reality, it doesn't hinder him very often, because his game is riddled with positive traits and very well refined. For some perspective on his progression from year to year, he was a 3-year starter at Florida State. I watched a snippet of his 2017 tape before moving on to his 2018 tape. Against Alabama in 2017, Burns was handled well by Crimson Tide tackle Matt Womack, for the most part. Burns showed some flashes even then, but he wasn't as fluid or precise with his rushing technique, and it made him an easy target with his small frame. In 2018, however, Burns took a mammoth leap, one that has carried him into top 10 consideration. And it all has to do with him maximizing his traits, some of which are elite. It's hard to put a finger on what Burns' best trait is, but his most impactful trait is without a doubt his length. Burns' length does so much for him. He can make tackles in pursuit that other edge rushers don't make, although his closing speed helps there as well. His length helps him set the edge, and maintain leverage on the move against outside runs. His length makes him a strip sack, pass deflection threat on any play. Burns' length is a lot for him, enough to fill 2 paragraphs. But the most important function Burns' length serves is keeping linemen's hands off of him. Burns' long arm is precise and sturdy, and with his length, he keeps distance between himself and linemen, preventing them from dominating his slim frame. This is the biggest reason I like Burns better than Polite. While both are not strictly powerful edge rushers, Burns can cultivate leverage with his length to avoid getting bested. Polite doesn't have that luxury. Now, you may say that Polite is the best speed rusher in the 2019 class. And you might not be wrong. But Burns is comparable to Polite in that area, and his array of pass rushing moves may be just as much, if not more refined. Burns seems to have a preference for the swim move, as he possesses a lethal sidestep and fluid movement skills, both vertically and laterally. But in truth, Burns' rushing nuance is superb. He carries with him fast, strong, and precise hands with which he can swipe, cross-chop, and do whatever it takes to get to the quarterback. But Burns isn't just a technique rusher, he combines athleticism, lateral quickness, nuance, and rushing moves to conflate his positive traits. Burns' first step, and his burst, is very impressive. He gains ground in the pocket very fast for his height, and he even has the coveted bend that teams seek in their edge rushers, the ability to shrink one's surface area and slip under the torso of a blocking lineman with ankle flexion. Burns is incredibly proficient with movement, and combined with his length, he embodies a terrific edge prospect. I did not intend for this to be a love fest of Brian Burns, but there are genuinely very few things missing from his game. You could make the case that his frame is concerning, but he counters his own shortcomings with his strengths, and effectively makes them non-factors. He can rush the passer. He can hold his ground against the run, and has the pursuit skills to make tackles from behind. He can even drop back in coverage. He's not a hybrid player, but he has the capability to occasionally serve in that type of role. All this, and we haven't talked about Burns' motor yet. He has a relentless motor, never giving up on a play. He attacks every snap, and if you're an opposing team, you'd better not leave him unblocked. Several times, teams made that mistake on film, and Burns made them pay every time, reaching the ball carrier in a flash. If there's one thing I'd want to see more of on Burns' tape, it's using his lateral ability and stop-and-go speed more when rushing outside the edge, but even that is impressive in spurts. Sometimes Burns gets lost in the sheer amount of names that this class boasts at defensive end. In any other class, we might be talking about Burns as the first edge rusher off the board. He's an elite prospect who brings a complete, exciting skill set to the table on day one, with the potential to get even stronger. Tape watch at Brian Burns vs. Boston College, 2018, Brian Burns vs. Wake Forest, 2018, Brian Burns vs. Miami, 2018, Brian Burns vs. Virginia Tech, 2018, Brian Burns vs. Alabama, 2017, Best Tape, Miami, Boston College Wars Tape, Alabama. Other resources used: 2019 NFL Draft Player Profile, Florida State Edge Brian Burns. Next, How Burns Fits the Redskins, page 3. LANDOVER, MD, October 29. Outside linebacker Ryan Kerrigan. Photo by Patrick Smith, Getty Images. If Preston Smith walks, then the Washington Redskins will need a new starter opposite Ryan Kerrigan. They don't quite need a replacement for Kerrigan yet. The veteran, despite turning 31 this August, recently went to his 4th Pro Bowl, and he shows no signs of slowing down. That said, getting a starter in round 1 of this year's draft serves two purposes. It fills a hole that presumably appears with the departure of Preston Smith, and it gives the Redskins young talent on the edge to carry over once Kerrigan begins his regression. For the Redskins, there are a number of different types of edge rushers in their range who could incur a considerable long-term impact. Clelin Ferrell is a relatively pro-ready prospect who could have a similar career to Kerrigan himself, and Jachai Polite would bring impressive speed to the edge. But of the edge rushers most likely to be picked in the no 10 to 20 range, Brian Burns has the most upside. Despite his lanky frame, he's stronger than Polite, and just as fast off the line. He also brings bend to the table, a trait that only the best edge rushers exude consistently. NFL scouts do their homework. Burns shouldn't fall outside the top 10. But NFL scouts sometimes prioritize the wrong things. If Burns weighs in on the light side at the NFL Combine, he very well could slip into the Redskins' clutches. 15. He'd be an elite prospect to pair with a stable veteran, instantly giving the Redskins one of the better tandems in the league. Next, should the Redskins draft Brian Burns? Page 4. ARLINGTON-TX, April 26. A video board displays the text, "The pick is in," for the Washington Redskins during the first round of the 2018 NFL Draft. Edit. Photo by Ronald Martinez, Getty Images. I'll save the anticipation. Put simply, if Preston Smith is not resigned, and Brian Burns falls to number 15, then the Redskins should draft him. Burns shouldn't fall to no. 15, and if he has a good enough combined performance, he won't. If he weighs in closer to 250, it'll be a done deal. But with the sheer amount of high-end defensive line prospects, and other possible risers at other positions, Burns could indeed drop a bit because of his weight. The Redskins have been the beneficiaries of elite prospects dropping before. In 2017, Jonathan Allen, widely regarded as the best interior lineman in his class, fell to no. 17, and the Redskins ran to the podium. If Burns falls to number 15, Washington will have to use the same pace. He's a must-add on a cheap rookie deal, with several plus developmental traits and an already heightened polish to his game. Next, Redskins first-round options. QB Daniel Jones. The Redskins have favored size in the past at edge rusher, so perhaps they wouldn't even use their pick on Burns if he looms around his current 231 figure. But Burns shouldn't be passed over just because of his weight, because his tape shows that his weight did little to hold him back in college. He has the perfect blend of traits to be a productive edge rusher in the NFL for a long time, and that might be just what the Redskins need. Page 5. In 2017, rumors of a shoulder injury forced top defensive lineman Jonathan Allen to fall to the Washington Redskins at pick no. 17, where he was subsequently picked up. Since then, he's developed into a borderline Pro Bowl caliber player, and he could be on the cusp of much greater recognition. In 2018, star running back Darius Geis was expected to be a mid to late first-round pick as one of the best overall prospects in the 2018 NFL Draft. But phantom character concerns caused the energetic runner to slide, and he was snagged by the Redskins in round 2. The Redskins traded back, added a third-rounder, and still grabbed juice, pulling off a masterful draft day trade, and adding a top talent in the process. The Redskins have capitalized on opportunity in the past 2 NFL drafts, but they've needed a bit of luck to pull off some steals. That's the nature of the NFL Draft. Quality players always slip, for whatever reason, and this year, a standout from Alabama's vaunted defense could fit that description. Per NFL insider Ian Rapoport, Crimson Tide safety Deontay Thompson will not be attending the NFL Combine, due to surgery for a torn wrist ligament. Unlikely he will take part in the Combine next week in Indianapolis, but no issues long-term. Ian Rapoport at Rap Sheet, February 23, 2019. This is big news, not just for Thompson, but for the flow of the NFL Draft itself. Thompson was regarded as a raw fringe first-round prospect at safety, with the expectation that he'd give scouts more confidence at the Combine, pertaining to his athleticism. Now that he won't have the chance to do that, he'll likely slip, as scouts will be unsure how to quantify his physical traits. Want your voice heard? Join the Rigos Rag team. Write for us. For the Redskins, this is especially notable. The team has had a preference for Alabama defensive players over the past 2 years, and there's no doubt that Thompson is on their board, with such a pressing need at safety. In light of recent developments, Thompson will undoubtedly fall into round 2, and the uncertainty of his situation could push him back even further. On day 2, Thompson would be great value for the Redskins. Next, Redskins first-round options. Edge Brian Burns. It's worth noting that Thompson is by no means a home run prospect. He has issues with diagnosing and processing from the back end, and his athleticism is a question. His game needs some refinement. He's not a complete project like Troy Apka. He'd likely be able to start right away, given his competence in other areas. But there would be growing pains. Whatever the case, the Redskins need to add the most value possible in the 2019 NFL Draft, and if Thompson slips, which is now very likely, they'll get their chance.